Hello, hello. This is the My Artifact episode number 4039. Today's date is 6th of May 2026. It's been almost like a morning at 8:56 a.m. Oh boy, like I'm like tired. Not tired, but actually it's this thing that uh, like in my home there is a kind of like a circus. Oh yeah, regarding about the motor. Okay, so we have motor. Okay, and most of the time it's not working. Okay, like not working means like that na ki, like it does not pull the water from well to tank. Okay, yeah. So we have to do a lot of jugadu things and that every single day. Okay, and it's a very kind of like a something like whatever. Okay, yeah, let's just jump into the recording. All right. Question is, how will you avoid popularity competition? Okay, yeah. First of all, what exactly is this question, and why am I asking this question to myself? Okay, I wanted to build app called My Artifact. Okay, uh, like basically it's a kind of like that, na? Ki when you wrote the diary every single day, you can't write the diary the way that you think. Why? Because of that, your thinking is much more faster than your writing. Okay, another thing is that na ki when you write thing there is a lot of constraint, lot of resistance, like pen, pencil, paper, convenience. Okay, and because of all those things you kind of like suddenly feel like that you cannot write the diary way that you wanted to. Okay, yeah. uh, but like basically I realized something that ki, what if instead of kind of like writing a diary, what if we could supposed to be record the diary, like record the kind of like a audio diary. Okay, yeah, this would be kind of like a much more better, and I am doing it that I am called that audio recording diary, I call that artifact. Okay, yeah. So the stuff that you are kind of like watching right now, this is my artifact episode number 4039, and I am doing this thing for almost like 11 year. I am doing this thing every single day, and because of this thing, like writing a diary or recording a diary. Okay, yeah, it's all the kind of like a some self realization process. Okay, yeah. And because of this artifact, because of this self realization process, I add so much amount of value in myself. The person that I am today and the person that I will become tomorrow, it's all because of the artifact. Okay, yeah, it's all because of this personal reflection process and things and that. The amount of value it add in myself, I realized that ki I should supposed to be share this value, I should supposed to be share this technicality to the people so that they should supposed to be get that value from their artifact. How do I do that? Well, there is only one way to do that, is to kind of like a build the application. Okay, yeah. So basically my application, this my artifact, is a kind of like a somewhat something like a YouTube. In the YouTube platform you could kind of like a something upload your video, other people sees your video, it's kind of like a same. Okay, yeah, you could kind of like a simply upload your artifact, other people kind of like a listen your artifact. By the way, it's a all audio artifact, it's all audio platform, it's not video platform. Okay, it's just an audio platform. So this is my kind of like a simply idea, a social media network site probably. Okay, yeah, artifact. But before I wanted to kind of like a public or things and that, before I wanted to build this application, I wanted to know the all the possible consequences, that what will gonna happen, and how do I supposed to face those problems, how do I supposed to solve those problems, how do I supposed to face such a consequences that will gonna happen in the future when I make this application. So I wanted to know all the possible consequences, so I went to ChatGPT. I kind of like tell my idea that this is my application and this and that and that, and suggest me kind of like something all the possible consequences, convert these consequences into the question and suggest me those hundreds of question. So ChatGPT kind of like suggests me hundreds of question, and by the way these are all question are actually in the mobile phone, but basically while recording I can't do this fiddling things, I can't do this. Yeah, so I wrote the question in here. This is a kind of like a question. This is a kind of like a book that I'm reading right now, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. All right, so let's talk about the question. The question says that, sorry, I just completely forget. The question says that how will you avoid the popularity competition? Okay, okay, what is actually the popularity competition? Let's take a YouTube. Okay, YouTube is a really good example. Now YouTube is a kind of like a some video sharing platform. You are kind of like a sharing video on YouTube platform. Specifically is this thing that ki, like whatever the creativity that you have, good, bad, right, wrong, whatever it is, okay, yeah, you could kind of like record your creativity in video format and share this video to the YouTube platform. Okay, people will see your creativity and things and that and that. Okay, yeah. So it's a really good thing. Okay, yeah, it's a really good thing to kind of like somebody share whatever the creativity that you have. If you are really good at painting, if you are really good at kind of like something that key, whatever it is. Okay, yeah. You can kind of like showcase your creativity, showcase your talent in this social media platform, in this YouTube platform. Okay, yeah. And that is the whole purpose of this artifact. Sorry, that is the whole purpose of kind of like a YouTube, to kind of like share the people what is actually value that they have, they wanted to share and things like that and that. In reward, YouTube kind of like give them numbers, how many like, how many dislike, comment, subscriber and things like that and that. Because they wanted to kind of like somebody create this as a kind of like a channel. Okay, yeah, like just like we kind of like have a channel that we could switch the channel from like a Sony to kind of like some colors to kind of like a Discovery to NetGeo and things like that. These are kind of like a channel. So YouTube kind of like decided that let's kind of like give them opportunity and they will kind of like create their own channel and they will kind of like somebody create a content regarding about that particular topic and upload that video on that particular channel. Okay, yeah. So this is a kind of like their motto, and for the viewer point of perspective, how much they have a trust on that particular person depends on how much higher number that they have, like a subscriber and things and that and that. Okay, yeah. So basically YouTube platform is a kind of like a really good for such a people who are kind of like have a creativity and things and that and that. Okay, yeah. And that subscriber button is a kind of like a somewhat something encouraged to the creator to kind of like create more content regarding about that. Okay, yeah. Why does they really require a kind of like some motivation to kind of like create a video? Because making video on YouTube platform is a difficult. Yeah, like you have to record the video, you have to write a script, record the script, then edit the script, edit the kind of like a only video with lot of transitions and things and that and that and that. So basically the video making process in YouTube platform is much more difficult. Okay, yeah. And obviously when the process is actually difficult, they really require some sort of motivation and things and that and that. And what could better way to kind of like get motivated by such a people, that such a people are kind of like a really already enthusiastic regarding about his craft and things and that and that. So that's why they have a kind of like a subscriber button, so that when they have a kind of like a subscriber gets, creator kind of like a get motivated to kind of like a create more piece of content, and that's kind of like a really good thing. So in that particular situation, that number, that follow number, like a subscriber number is a kind of like a very much kind of like a really good. Okay, yeah. Now basically is this thing like this is kind of like a really good kind of like something really good kind of like a something initiative by YouTube. Okay, yeah, to add the number and things like that and that. But there is a kind of like a consequences happen. Some good consequences happen, some bad consequences will happen too. Because every action comes with consequences, good and bad. Okay, yeah. So let's talk about kind of like a something good consequences. Good consequences is that he creator kind of like a get motivated to kind of like a record the video, record their kind of like a somebody YouTube videos and things and that. And not only when they do that, creator kind of like experience regarding about video making process, regarding about their kind of like a passionate regarding about what they want to do and things and that. And then basically is this thing that particular kind of like a creator will kind of like establish his identity according to that creativity that he has. Okay, yeah. He kind of like a get the kind of like a somebody external validation from around the world, like basically I am the kind of like a somebody creativity, I has a kind of like a creativity as a kind of like a somebody Photoshop, I kind of like a create a really good quality of poster. Okay, yeah. I kind of like a make a video regarding about how I make kind of like a really good quality of poster. Now I am getting a subscriber and things and that, but because of I kind of like have generate these skills inside of me, so external factor also affect me. Like external factor means what, like a some sort of company they will approach me, say that thing, will you kind of like make a poster for us, we are kind of like paying you money and this much. So basically this platform, this YouTube platform is a kind of like a somebody that he, besides any kind of like a degree, besides any kind of like a things, it kind of like a somebody that he recognize how much creativity, how much talent that you have, and we will kind of like a somebody share this talent, creativity to the rest of the world, so that you will kind of like get the maximum output and things and that. So which is a really good thing, so that is called good consequences. Okay, yeah. Bad consequences is that ki, when the person is a kind of like a became too much big, when the person, when kind of like any YouTuber who kind of like a became too much big, too much big means what, like a too many subscriber and things and that the person who has a kind of like a control over kind of like a millions of people. Okay, yeah. That particular person kind of like a shape the kind of like a something society. Yeah, because he has that kind of like a something followership, like a Mr. Beast. Okay, yeah. Mr. Beast is a kind of like a creating content regarding about kind of like a something that key fun challenge and things and that, which is kind of like a really good. But when he crossed kind of like a somebody 400, like a 300, 400 million subscriber, that is a very big number. Like a 400 million subscriber means 400 million people. Do you realize that how many big number is that? Oh yeah, 4 million people, sorry, 400 million people, that means almost like a, like most of the kind of like country's population is not even more than that. Okay, yeah, so it is kind of like a very big number. Okay, yeah, 400 million people means almost like a half of the billion people, na? Half of the billion people, dude, that's a like very too much amount of people. Okay, yeah. So basically is this thing na ki when the creator kind of like a became that much big and he has a kind of like a that much amount of subscriber, he kind of like a something hold such a power that kind of like a something try to shape the social media, try to shape the lot of people thought process, try to shape the market, try to shape like a so many things. Like when you have that much amount of big control, you can control so many things because you have almost like a 400 million people with you. Okay, yeah. So it's a kind of like a very big responsibility. Okay, yeah. If you use it wisely, then okay, but if you're not using it wisely, it might kind of like a disaster, but not that disaster, it's not really that. Okay, yeah. But still 400 million people are kind of like a very big number, and you will kind of like shape the society. Okay, yeah. Now shaping the society means what? Like basically most of the kind of like a small creator are actually following the big creator. Okay, yeah, in the YouTube platform. Why does they do that? Why they are not kind of like a sharing their creativity? The problem is that na, it's not about the kind of like a somebody creativity, it's about the number. Okay, because in the end people are actually kind of like somebody categorized by the number system, because number are kind of like a easy to compare. Okay, yeah. Like basically I am a painter and another creator who is a kind of like a cinematographer. So who is actually better than a painter or cinematographer? We can't decide that thing, right? But a painter has a kind of like a somebody 3 million subscriber, and the cinematographer have a kind of like a somebody that key 1 million subscriber. So probably we think that key the painter who has a kind of like a 3 million subscriber is much more better than cinematographer. Okay, yeah, so we actually kind of like somebody compare the people according to the number. Okay, yeah, and this is something really wrong. Okay, yeah, because of when this kind of like a gap we could see that lower in number, then people are kind of like a somebody like a they will not gonna kind of like a create their own content. They will kind of like a follow the big creator. Okay, yeah, they will follow the big creator because they believe that he big creator have a kind of like a influence to kind of like a shape the society. So yeah, example is the like a PewDiePie. Okay, yeah. So before the Mr. Beast, PewDiePie is one of the kind of like a most subscriber YouTuber on the planet on the YouTube platform. Okay, and basically is this thing he started playing Minecraft. Okay, Minecraft is a game, by the way. He started playing Minecraft. Before that, there is a very niche kind of like a people who are kind of like a playing the Minecraft. But when the PewDiePie is kind of like a playing the Minecraft and he's a kind of like a streaming live on his kind of like 100 million people, 100 million subscriber, he's playing this Minecraft. Other people are kind of like a started playing the Minecraft, and because of this thing, because of PewDiePie kind of like a create a kind of like a somebody another genre of Minecraft is actually create another genre. Like most of people, most of the gamers are actually playing Minecraft is because of that they will kind of like get higher growth. Because of PewDiePie kind of like started playing this game in 2007 or before that, I'm not really sure, but yeah. So do you understand a kind of like a somebody that a person could hold that much amount of power that could shape the kind of like a society, that could shape the kind of like a social media platform, that could shape the people thought process and things and that, because it's a kind of like a somebody that it's a compound effect happened. Okay, yeah, like PewDiePie kind of like a played the Minecraft. That video kind of like a seen by 100 million people. 100 million people, some people are kind of like a somebody decided that okay, let's play Minecraft too. So they also play the Minecraft. Okay, yeah, they also kind of like a cater the Minecraft audience to their audience. Like they kind of like a cater the Minecraft game to their audience. Okay, yeah, then this particular does, then this does, and this does, and this does. This kind of like a compound effect happened, like a 3 to 9 to 27. It's a kind of like a chain reaction happened, and it's kind of like always getting bigger. Even if the game is not really good, but still people are kind of like playing that game because of that it's on trending. So yeah, so that is called kind of like a compounding effect. Okay, yeah, that people are just kind of like keep playing that. Okay, yeah, that is a wrong thing happened. Okay, yeah, like dude, what do you mean by that is a wrong thing happened? Like those are people are just playing the video game, right? So what's kind of like a wrong thing happened? Well, wrong thing happened is actually happened is because of that na ki instead of people who are kind of like somebody creating their own creativity, right now they are kind of like somebody creating such a piece of content that they already knew that they will kind of like somebody establish and things and that. So they are not kind of like creating their own content, they are kind of like creating such a content that already established, like Minecraft, and just do that thing. Okay, yeah. So basically what exactly happened that na the people who can able to be create something different than normal, but they are kind of like a chose Minecraft because Minecraft is already established, and because of why this kind of like they do that thing, because of the number of subscriber, number of kind of like so many people are kind of like following this thing and that. Okay, yeah. Now I'm just talking about just a kind of like somebody talk about just the numbers of people who are kind of like playing and kind of like watching the Minecraft. There is a lot of thing actually happen in the Minecraft too. Like the Minecraft sale is actually increased. Then they are kind of like somebody sell their kind of like somebody that keep for merchandise kind of like toys and things and that. Okay, yeah. Then after that kind of like somebody that that particular game will kind of like somebody detect the kind of like somebody game world, because other games are not really kind of like playing, and Minecraft is only game that kind of like millions of people are actually playing and things and that. Even if that game is not really good, but still that Minecraft kind of like have that authority to kind of like change the shape, the industry level, okay, in the game content and things and that. So it creates a monopoly. It's create the monopoly, and that's wrong thing. That's wrong thing. Okay, means like that people who kind of like simply try to figure it out something in a new game which is kind of like a much more better, they are not really choosing. Okay, yeah. So the people who are kind of like a creating new game, they are already demotivated because of that. Ki whatever they try, they will not gonna compete the Minecraft, because Minecraft is kind of like already kind of like established and already have a kind of like a millions of users are kind of like playing the game and things like that and that. So yeah, and this is all actually happen is because of that ki when the people are kind of like getting so much popular, PewDiePie became so much popular and things and that. Well, I will not gonna talk about the Mr. Beast. Okay, yeah, like a Mr. Beast is kind of like understand the responsibility, and he kind of like creates such a content that really required a kind of like somebody such a people that kind of like somebody that he deserve for this basically is this thing na ki missed sorry the PewDiePie kind of like utilize his kind of like somebody potential to kind of like create such a genre that kind of like somebody create something really wrong thing in the future. But I shouldn't supposed to say with the Mr. Beast, because Mr. Beast had a kind of like hold such a big kind of like a some big audience. He get a very big audience, but his audience is not kind of like a some gamer. His audience is kind of like a somebody is saying that he fun challenges and things and that. Okay, yeah, which is kind of like a very difficult to execute, because playing a Minecraft is a kind of like a far more easier than executing Mr. Beast video, because executing Mr. Beast video it's very difficult. It not only required money but effort and lot of stuff. So that's why very less people are trying to do copy the Mr. Beast, because it's a very difficult to do that thing. Okay, yeah. And Mr. Beast kind of like understand here the potential of his worth, and he kind of like utilize his popularity to kind of like create such a content that other people does not kind of like copy their content, or other people are kind of like not kind of like utilizing this and that. So this is kind of like a really good. Okay, yeah. But still is this thing that ki not just one or two people but kind of like a bunch of other people are kind of like shaping or creating such a piece of content that not really good in the society. Like there is a kind of like somebody new kind of like somebody content creation actually established called Get Ready With Me. Okay, yeah. Get Ready With Me is a kind of like some new category of content creation where kind of like people are kind of like simply sharing that how they should supposed to be ready for something. Like literally they kind of like wear the they are kind of like literally nude. Okay, yeah. And they are kind of like specifically in woman point of perspective, and they are kind of like wearing clothes and things and that, and kind of like show that how fashionable she was and that nude, like not properly but kind of like a half naked nude and things and that kind of like a soft porn. Okay, which is also really not right. Okay, yeah, because it kind of like influence to the kind of like a people to kind of like do such a thing, and still that is kind of like a completely wrong thing. Okay, yeah. But still is this thing na ki I'm not gonna say this thing, because every action comes with the consequences. Some consequences are really good, some consequences are really bad. Okay, yeah. As a kind of like a person who is controlling that kind of like a power, making sure that ki bad consequences happen less and good consequences happen more. Okay, yeah. So this is what kind of like some things and that. So basically this is what kind of like effect on the popular. When you became popular, you are kind of like shaping that much kind of like some reality around you. Okay, yeah. And that's the kind of like somebody that key like basically then that piece of content is not became the piece of content. That piece of content became a kind of like somebody a way to kind of like shape the society, shape the world, shape the thought process, things and that. So that is a kind of like a things. Okay, yeah. So basically this is all actually happened is because of that ki higher number of kind of like a subscriber and things and that. Okay, yeah. So I am actually creating a platform which kind of like a somewhat something like a YouTube. Okay, yeah. So in my platform, does people kind of like get popular like a Mr. Beast, like PewDiePie and like and that? Well, I don't want to. Okay, yeah. Because let me tell you one thing, as I mentioned in YouTube platform, creating videos kind of like a far more difficult. So kind of like a somebody, every person really requires some sort of motivation to kind of like get that thing. So subscriber button is a kind of like that motivation to kind of like a people who kind of like create the content. Okay, yeah. uh, but in my platform, people just recording thoughts. They don't really record any kind of like a video or things and that. They just kind of like sit here, talk here like that. Okay, yeah. So this is kind of like a simply that key. The process to kind of like a create the artifact is a kind of like a much more easier to kind of like a record video for YouTube platform. Okay, yeah. Because of it is kind of like a quite an easy and things and that people are kind of utilized for wrong purposes. Wrong purpose means like that they will talk shit and things and that and that and that. Okay, yeah. So basically is this thing that I like what is actually my purpose, like what is actually I want from my application. I want that people should supposed to be record the artifact with consistency. Okay, yeah. Means like that they should supposed to be record the artifact throughout their entire life, because the amount of value that you add when you record the artifact is not in the number base, it's not in the kind of like how much subscriber or how much follower that you have. No, it's actually kind of like something happened externally. Okay, yeah. Like basically if you are kind of like a really good at kind of like a somebody recording artifact, your thought process change, your thinking process change, the way that you kind of like a somebody, the way that you shape the reality, you could change that thing. Okay, yeah. And basically because of this thing it kind of like a create consequences, but more good consequences and more wrong consequences. Okay, yeah. So I want that people should supposed to be record artifact consistently every single day, and because of this thing they will add value inside of them. Okay, yeah. And whatever the amount of value or money that they get from external, not from kind of like a subscriber base and things and that. Okay. So this is I want that people should supposed to be consistent, and people should supposed to be consistently record the artifact, because the true amount of kind of like some value that people get when the kind of like people will kind of like record the artifact consistently. Okay. So this is I want. Okay, I don't want any kind of like somebody that keep subscriber or things and that. Okay. But there is also another thing is that na ki like a subscriber followers are also really essential for what, for trusting that the person that they are kind of like listening to are the trustworthy or not, because most of people are kind of like look at the number and they are kind of like only realize that is that trustworthy or not. Having a big number create more trustworthy. So basically number I have to be enter. Okay. But I'm not really sure that how do I supposed to execute this thing, like should I supposed to be kind of like create as a subscriber base, like how much subscriber that you have, or maybe like followers, like followers, how many followers that you have. Okay, yeah. I'm kind of like really confused at the moment. Okay, yeah. I don't want that he kind of like somebody people kind of like somebody that he understand the credibility of the person by number, but number is a kind of like a first way of kind of like understanding that key how trustworthy is that particular person or not. So there is a good consequence and bad consequence too. There is a good thing and bad things too for utilizing the number and things and that. Before I was actually thinking about that ki kind of like use the like button, dislike button, and kind of like have the number in that thing. But then I realized that ki kind of like things that na ki like a like button does not kind of like represent kind of like an entire thought process. Sometimes kind of like I use a kind of like multiple emotions interact with this thing, that ki instead of like button kind of like say that ki I am with you, I understand with you, I convince with you, or maybe kind of like somebody I like whatever it is. Okay, yeah. So that kind of like a person who kind of like a recording artifact, they understand that ki okay, like there are kind of like a couple of people who are kind of like exist and things and that. Another thing is that na ki I will gonna use a cap. Okay, at some certain level your artifact will not gonna become that much power, that much viral, even if how good is that. But still is this certain ki I have to be do this thing like a not use the cap or use the cap, because if I use the cap then probably I'll just say that ki a kind of like a particular person kind of like hit the kind of like a somebody million listener. Okay, and after that artifact will not gonna kind of like went that much ahead. Okay, yeah. Like it will not gonna go 2 million 3 million views or 3 million listen and things like that. Okay, yeah. But if I'm not doing it that na, then what is actually happened that na ki the people who kind of like record artifact really good, they will not kind of like somebody, they will not gonna get that much really good exposure. Okay, yeah. So basically is this thing that good artifact and kind of like a bad artifact is kind of like a became at the same level, okay, because they already have a kind of like a cap. Now how you kind of like a think that the bad artifact actually reached to the million, because still is this thing now, bad artifact is kind of like a defined very vague, because of that term people kind of like a think very differently. Okay, yeah. Even if the people who kind of like criticize the government and things and that is a wrong, but the way that they criticize is a kind of like really unique way to kind of like somebody that keep by fun or by humor or things and that. So people kind of like consider subscribe and following that particular person. So yeah, even if the bad kind of like artifact will kind of like become viral because of the way that he execute the piece of content, way that he execute the artifact, okay, which is kind of like equally kind of like a thing is that now according to the kind of like a good artifact. So basically there is no difference between the good artifact and bad artifact, okay, yeah. I want that kind of like a good artifact should supposed to be higher than bad artifact, okay, yeah, because like basically I cannot kind of like stop bad artifact always be there. People will gonna talk shit. I also talk shit in the artifact too, that is true, okay, yeah. But I want that ratio should supposed to be kind of like a 10 out of maybe kind of like a 5 or less than 5, okay. Like basically I want that good artifact should supposed to be kind of like a 10, then bad artifact should supposed to be at the 5, okay. I'm talking about as the average point of perspective, okay, yeah. Regarding about how many listens that you get and things and that. So that's why I have kind of like built a judgmental system regarding about that key. Every artifact is actually judged by the kind of like assembly AI, judged by the algorithm Adam, and kind of like assembly people from how many likes and how many kind of like a dislike. But then I realized that key, dude, should I supposed to add the dislike button and things and that. Then I kind of like a think that key I should supposed to be add the dislike button, but it's not a dislike button, it's a kind of like a simply report button, that key even if the people who kind of like think that this artifact is a kind of like a threatening to the people life and things and that like not really good, so they would kind of like add the report button. This would be kind of like a much more better, but still most of people are kind of like ignore that thing, okay, yeah. So if the people who are kind of like simply disliking the artifact or not disliking the artifact, then kind of like a system will not gonna realize that key like this artifact is really good. So I have to be kind of like somebody judged by the kind of like a average view duration, like how many people are kind of like watching or listening your artifact, okay, yeah, and how many likes that you get, okay, yeah. From that particular thing it might be kind of like a much more better to kind of like somebody execute better artifact to the higher growth, okay, yeah. But still is this thing that na ki I don't want that it should supposed to be go like a much more higher, like I don't want that kind of like somebody artifact will kind of like a goes from kind of like somebody that ki like 100 millions of listener, 100 millions people who are kind of like listening the artifact. I don't want that. I have to be kind of like add some sort of cap, okay, yeah. Right now I'm not really sure how do I supposed to figure it out things and that, okay, yeah. But I will in the future, okay, yeah. Right now I just have to build the application, okay. Even if the kind of like somebody the system is not ready, I have to build the application, test that the artifact is kind of like a working or not. And when the kind of like somebody it kind of like I had a kind of like a getting any kind of like a feedback from the people, then I will kind of like execute according to it. I will try to make sure that add a particular limit, a cap would be kind of like a much more better, right? Yeah, so this is my opinion regarding about that. Thank you.